In this video, I want to make you aware of a little trick to help you pronounce the end of words correctly. In English, the end of the word has to be clear and fully pronounced. It seems that English has kind of a preference for hearing the end of words. English, we like to hold on to that end of the word. We like to hear it loud and clear. And also, students often are often used to making the end of a word unvoiced, like the D sound, for example. That is a voiced sound because your voice has to still be humming when you make that sound, D. But students often pronounce it like a T, a t, t. But in English, it has to be voiced, D. So that's a common, the D, maybe the G, some of the other voiced sounds. Students have a tendency to make them unvoiced. Something like an R. You have English. We want to hear that R. Students have a tendency to kind of like stop the end of the word while we want to. Well, English, you really should make the end of the word long and nice and clear. So my trick is words should be connected. Most words should be connected to each other. So what you can do is extend the last sound or the end of the word, kind of extend it so that it becomes the beginning of the next word. It's really a psychological thing. Think of the end of a word as the beginning of the next word. This will work for most words. All right. So I'll read some of this text. I can also use so that's a simple one. There's no break between I and can. I can, just like one word, I can also, that N at the end of can, just pretend it's the beginning of also. I can also. So that would be nalso. I can also. Nalso. Try that. I can also. Nalso. Say nalso. I can also. And you can connect. So that's a consonant connected to a vowel. It's easy to connect things to vowels, but you can also connect consonants to consonants. I can also use, so here's a vowel being connected to a vowel. Also use, also use something. Now, I don't know if I read this whole sentence. I can also use something called concatenation. Okay. Also use practice saying that. Also use. So don't stop your voice. It's just one vowel connected to another vowel. Also use. Use and something. Use is spelled with an S. It's spelled with an S. However, it's pronounced like a Z. About half of the S's in English, words where it's spelled with an S, about half of those S's are actually pronounced as Z's. It's a voiced sound. Use. You have to continue. Your voice has to continue. Use. But the next word is something, which starts with an S. Use something. The S is an unvoiced sound. Use something. So in this case, these two sounds are similar. The S is going to kind of, you're not really going to hear much of a Z because the S is going to kind of absorb the Z. use something. Use something. Use something called. Something called. The end of something is the NG sound. Ing. Which most students can make the NG sound. Sometimes it causes a little confusion, but it's not an N. It's an NG sound. Ing, ing, made with like ing, the middle back of your tongue. Ing, ing. Something called. So, ing called. Ing called. I mean, it sounds a little funny, but that's what we do. Just connect those two words. Something called. So, ing called is just the end of something, and then called. Something called. Ing called. Something called. Now we have this D. This D has to be pronounced D. It can't be T. It has to be D. Called. Called concatenation. The concatenation. The concatenation. The concatenation. The concatenation. Try that. The concatenation. If concatenation's a long, tricky word, just say con. The con. Call the con. Call the con. The con. The kin. The kin. The kin. Call the concatenation. Now here we have the end. I can also use something called concatenation. And concatenation, so that's the end of a sentence. We're not going to connect the word at the end of a sentence to the word at the beginning of the next sentence. They will have a break there. And concatenation, now the word and has a D, but the word and is never almost never stressed. So we're actually just going to skip that D, because it's rare to say the D in the word and. So, and concatenation. So we just have an N sound, basically. And concatenation. Concatenation. And we have an N at the end of concatenation. And concatenation is basically the process of taking a string. And concatenation is niz. And concatenation is a lot of N's. Niz. Say niz. Niz. And concatenation is. Just think of that N as at the beginning of is. And concatenation is. And concatenation is basically. Basically. If you have trouble making a Z sound at the end of a word, some students are able to make, for some students it's easier to make a Z sound at the beginning of a word than at the end of a word. It's something that they're just more used to. Z. So that Z sound in is, because that's an S, but it's pronounced as a Z. Is. Z. So just pretend that that's the beginning of basically. Z, basically. Is basically. So say that. Is basically. Is basically. Remember, it's that Z sound is at the beginning of basically, because you're going to think of it that way. You're going to put it there, because that'll sound completely natural. Is basically. Is basically. And concatenation is basically. And concatenation is basically the. That's easy, I think. Basically the. What students usually don't make the E long enough when a word ends with the E sound. So maybe this might make it easier. The is basically the is basically the process of, let's Suv. So the process ends with an S sound. The process of. The process of taking. Now we have of is spelled with an F. The F is a reliable letter. If something's spelled with an F, you have to make an F sound. That's this is the only exception I know of. The word of, you have to make a V sound here. That's the only exception I know of. Otherwise, if you see an F, make an F sound. But here's a V. Of taking. Say taking. Taking. Of taking. Of taking. Of taking a string. Taking oh, we have the ng, that's what that would be. Taking string. Say a string. And then we have a couple, okay. So, and you're going to get more practice saying the sound at the beginning of words. So this is the article a. It's a separate word, but there are a lot of words that have this as the beginning of the word. A string. Taking a string, and let's see, taking a string and here we have a couple. The ng connected to and well, no, and is not taking a string and string and pending and pending pending another we have taking and then we have appending appending another appending another. Now I have R, appending another string onto it. Another string. 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 Another string. Another string onto it. Another ng connected to a vowel. String onto it. Onto it. String onto it. Onto it. Onto it. That these things almost always sound funny when you isolate it, but this is actually what we're doing when we're talking. That's exactly what we're doing. Appending another string onto it. I'm just leaving off the beginning of the rest of the word string. I'm just leaving off the str and just making the ng sound and then connecting it to onto, which is onto, string onto. It's actually the same exact sounds that we make normally. Appending another string onto it. Onto it. Onto it. Onto. Okay. Onto it. Onto it. Onto it. We have onto. These are two words that have been just connected. Onto, like, I don't know, hundreds of years ago they got connected. Onto it. So let's pretend that to and it have been connected. To it. Onto it. Onto it. Appending another string onto it. So I just want you to be aware that that you can just take the last sound of a word and connect and pretend that it's the beginning of the next word, which is just a little trick that might help you to get the right hang. If you're having trouble pronouncing the end of a word, just pretend it's the beginning of a next word, and it might, in some cases, it can be quite helpful.